Welcome to Whole and Healthy Cooking with Chef Val. Hi, I'm Chef Valerie Wilson. I've been teaching healthy, whole foods cooking classes since 1997. I'm the author of 5 cookbooks, and you can find out about all that I have to offer and all of my upcoming cooking classes on my website, macroval.com. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a vegan, gluten-free vanilla cake. Now this is a recipe that's out of my year-round healthy holiday dishes cookbook. So when you make a cake and it's vegan, you have to use some tricks to make it light and fluffy so it's not dense. Now one of those tricks is an egg replacer, and I use flaxseed meal. So what I have here is 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal. Now that's going to go into our food processor. And with the flaxseed meal, we need some liquid. So I have a 1/2 cup of a rice milk. You could use your favorite non-dairy beverage for this recipe. And I have 2 tablespoons of water. So the first thing you do is you just turn the food processor on and you break up the flaxseed meal and it mixes with the liquid and it becomes frothy. This helps the cake rise. So let's just turn the processor on here just for a minute. All right, so I hope you can see in the video, we've got some frothiness in there, all right? And now we add the rest of the liquid to the food processor. So we're making a healthy cake. We don't want to use white refined sugar because we all know how bad that is for us. So I'm going to use 2 of my favorite all-natural sweeteners. I'm going to use brown rice syrup, made from whole brown rice. This is the healthiest sweetener you can use. And I'm going to use it in combination with maple syrup, another very healthy sweetener. For more information about healthy sweeteners, you can watch my video all about healthy sweeteners where I go through the whole list of different types of sweeteners. In my measuring cup, I have a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Good quality organic olive oil. I have a 1/4 cup of maple syrup and a 1/4 cup of brown rice syrup. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos or you've attended my cooking classes, you know my cooking tip is to put the oil in the same measuring cup as the sweeteners because brown rice syrup and maple syrup are sticky. So if you put them all in the same measuring cup together, they won't stick to the measuring cup. We're going to put those into the food processor now, like so. So a lot of people ask me when they want to start making desserts and they want them to be healthy and they don't want to use sugar, is there a conversion? No, there is no conversion because maple syrup and brown rice syrup are liquids. So you have to completely change the recipe and you have to change the dry ingredients compared to the wet ingredients. So I've spent 25 years perfecting recipes such as this for the vanilla cake. Other things like muffins, chocolate cakes, anything like that. I've gone out of my way to make the recipes so they come out beautiful for you, okay? We have 2 teaspoons of a brown rice vinegar. Now, why am I putting vinegar in a cake? Well, again, it's because we want the cake to be light and fluffy and rise. And when you mix vinegar with baking powder, which we're going to put in with the dry ingredients, it creates this fluffiness in the cake. So 2 teaspoons brown rice vinegar. We have 2 teaspoons of our beautiful vanilla flavoring. Now, if you want to get the best vanilla flavoring, read the ingredients. And of course, I always recommend organic, but also look for one that is alcohol-free. The vanilla flavor will be stronger, more intense for you. Put the vanilla in there like so. put it in the food processor. Here's another cooking tip for you. So you're going to turn the food processor on, take your rag, and just put it over the processor in case some of the liquid starts to come out. This helps to keep it clean. I'm going to turn it on and let it puree just for a couple minutes, or probably just a minute. All right, so maybe it wasn't a minute, it was just some few seconds, but it's all well incorporated in there. And I use a food processor because brown rice syrup is thick and sticky. So this, I make sure that it's well incorporated, well mixed. Now over here, let's work on the dry ingredients. Get yourself a bowl. Now for a cake, I like to sift it. So this is just a strainer. We're gonna sift the flour through here. You could also use a handheld sifter like that, and that could possibly work too. And so you want to put it over the bowl like so, and you're going to sift the flour into the bowl. All right. Now here's a cooking tip for you. When you measure your flour, put your measuring cup on top of a bowl or a plate, and that way it'll catch the extra flour in here, and you can use that flour. So for this recipe, we want 2 cups of a whole grain flour. If you're going to go with a gluten-free cake, I would use whole grain oat flour. It is my favorite flour, all right? Now, I have had some people try this recipe with a gluten-free flour mixture, which would be like rice flour, could be white flour, and lots of high carbohydrate flours. I do not recommend that. A gluten-free mixture has a bunch of flours in it. So if you want a gluten-free cake and you want it to turn out beautiful for you, use oat flour. So again, we want 2 cups. So you pour it into the measuring cup, and you want the flour to be light and fluffy in there. So you just go like that. And again, if you have any spillage, it gets caught in the bowl. So you don't have to worry about wasting flour if you're measuring it. So my recipes are pretty forgiving. So I just put 2 cups of oat flour in there. If we need to add a little more liquid or a little more flour, depending on the consistency of the batter, it's perfectly fine. But look, we have all that flour. Now I saved it in the bowl so I can put it into the bag. Back in the bag, we can use it. All right, so now you just sift the flour. Let's get a close up here. Sift the flour like so. We also have 2 teaspoons of that baking powder I told you about. Put that in there like so. So when it comes to whole grain flours, this is a gluten-free cake, so oat is my favorite. If you are not on a gluten-free diet, another one of my favorites is spelt. You could also use a kamut. You could use organic whole wheat einkorn flour, because that one is very nutrient dense. Just, I'm not a fan of the flour mixtures where there's a bunch of different flours in there. I'm also not a fan of bean flour. So like a garbanzo bean flour is much heavier. Your cake is going to be heavy if you use one of those flours. Now, whole grain flours come from whole grains. And if you've watched my videos or attended my cooking classes, you know how healthy whole grains are. So this is going to be a healthy cake for us, right? All right, so now we mix the liquid with the dry. Now we do need to put a pinch of sea salt into the cake. You always put just a pinch of sea salt in your sweet desserts. It brings out the sweetness and it balances the sweet. That's what we want. So put the liquid into the dry all at once. Pour it in there all at once. Don't do a little at a time and then a little at a time and then a little at a time. I had this beautiful assistant who worked for me quite a few years ago, and she was learning how to cook, and she really didn't know the concept. So she was following one of my recipes, making a cake, and I was busy doing something else. And when I turned back to look to see what was going on, her cake batter was super thick. And what she had done is she added a little bit of the liquid, mixed it up, add a little more liquid, mixed it up, a little more liquid. She was basically creating cement We don't want that. We want a light and fluffy cake. All right, so here's our batter. Let's do a close-up. Now you just mix it together until all the flour gets dissolved, okay? Just like so. Hey, I know during this video you saw the phone, you heard the phone ring, and I apologize for that. I teach cooking classes out of my home, and I do these videos in my home, and I don't really have a way to edit the videos, and so when I start doing a recipe, I just keep going. I don't bother to stop. So you heard the phone ring in the background, and that's perfectly fine, because when you're cooking at home, the phone could possibly ring in the background. Hey, just keep on working on your recipe. Don't worry about it, okay? All right, there's our cake batter. Looks beautiful, light and fluffy. See how that is? Light and fluffy. So to put the cake in the oven, I have a 9-inch round cake pan. This will make 1 layer. In the cookbook, Year-Round Healthy Holiday Dishes, the recipe makes a 2-layer cake. So I have split the recipe in half. I've put a piece of parchment paper in the bottom of the pan with a little bit of olive oil. The parchment paper will just make sure that the cake doesn't stick. And then we just pour, oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you another trick. I forgot about this. I have been doing this ever since I've been creating recipes. This is a great thing to do. You're gonna make a little sample, all right? So get yourself a small little dish that can go in the oven. And you're gonna take a little bit of that dough and put it into this little dish, and you're gonna bake the cake and you're gonna make this little dish at the same time. And that way you can check and make sure that the consistency and the flavor of the cake is beautiful and perfect. You get a little sample. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil into this dish so that the cake batter doesn't stick to it. So again, that's just another cooking tip that I always do. You're gonna put the majority of the cake batter into the 9-inch cake pan, but put a little bit in here, a little sample, right? And you're gonna see that bake, all right? And then you'll be able to taste the cake, because maybe you're making the cake for a special occasion, and you don't wanna have to try and sample the 9-inch cake. You want to be able to sample the little sample you put into the bowl. Put your oven on 350 degrees. Preheat your oven. So it's very important that your oven is at 350 degrees when you put the cake into it. That ensures that the cake is going to cook evenly. 350 degrees, you want it to be at that temperature. So this is the vanilla cake recipe. And so I'm going to bake it for 25 minutes. Now, if you want to see what the cake looks like when it's done, please watch part 2 of the vanilla cake recipe video. So if you want to see what it looks like when it comes out of the oven, come back. Now for a frosting for our vanilla cake, you can watch my video that's a Dookie Bean fudge frosting, one of my favorite recipes. So make sure you watch that video for a frosting and come back and watch part 2 so you see what the vanilla cake looks like when it comes out of the oven. I'll see you in a bit.